Okay, so picture this. You're about to give a big presentation.
Mm.
And, like, your mind is racing, right? Running lines, worrying about the audience,
Yeah.
maybe even picturing, like, the worst-case scenario.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there.
Totally. It's like our brains had this autopilot setting for, like, overthinking.
Mm.
But what if I told you there's a way to kind of hit the pause button on that?
Oh.
To step back from that whirlwind of thoughts
Mhm.
and become like a more conscious observer of what's going on in your own mind.
Okay, now that sounds interesting.
Right. That's what we're diving into today with this fascinating excerpt, Auto Observation 1.
Odd observation 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't worry, we're not going to be like meditation gurus by the end of this.
Okay, good, because I'm no guru.
Neither.
Yeah,
This deep dive is all about like unpacking the core principles of this whole self-observation thing
I like.
and seeing if it, clicks with you, if it resonates.
Makes sense.
So one of the things that really struck me about this text right off the bat is how it emphasizes that this whole self-awareness thing, this, what does it call it? Attent to observation.
Intent to observation, yeah.
It says it goes way beyond just like intellectual understanding.
It's deeper than that.
Way deeper. It's about tapping into a different kind of wisdom altogether.
They actually call it sabiduria profunda, profound wisdom in English.
Ooh, I like that. Profound wisdom. It's like this idea that there's this whole wellspring of knowledge inside us.
Yeah.
That's like way deeper than just, book smarts.
Right. Like, I'm thinking back to this one time early in my career.
Oh, tell me.
I had this gut feeling about a research project I was working on.
Okay, yeah.
On paper, the data looked great, promising. Yeah.
But something just felt off.
Really?
Yeah. Logically, everything checked out. But I couldn't shake this, like, unease.
Wow.
And you know what? Turns out my intuition was right. We ended up uncovering a flaw in our methodology that would have totally invalidated our whole study.
Wow. So you're saying that sabiduria profunda, that deep wisdom,
Yeah,
it was like trying to tell you something.
exactly. That experience, man, it really drove home the power of listening to that deeper level of knowing. That
Yeah.
sabiduria profunda.
It's like sometimes our gut knows what our brain hasn't quite figured out yet.
It's a powerful thing.
So how do we actually tap into that deeper level?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, right?
Right. Well, according to this excerpt, it's all about this whole odd observation thing.
Yeah.
It's like a training ground for our awareness, they say. Training ground, huh?
Yeah. Imagine this. Your thoughts are like a pack of adorable but totally hyperactive puppies.
Okay, cute picture.
Right. Running around like crazy. And this practice is about, gently
Jen?
and maybe with a little humor, teaching those puppies to, like, sit and stay.
To calm down.
Yes. So that you can actually observe them without getting, like, totally caught up in the chaos.
So you get some distance.
Exactly.
And it stresses this is a skill, something you build over time with practice. It's not like, boom, you're suddenly this like perfectly serene Zen master.
Oh, 100%. We've all got those puppy-like thoughts running wild sometimes. So true.
Right. It's about building up that muscle, the ability to observe your thoughts without judgment, without getting swept away.
Which, let's be real, is way harder than it sounds.
Oh, tell me about it. Takes practice. The text actually breaks down this whole self-observation process into stages. And that first stage, simply noticing. Noticing your thoughts, your feelings, your actions. Just noticing without the judgment.
Sounds deceptively simple.
Right. But honestly, try it for just a few minutes. I bet you'll be surprised how quickly that inner critic starts piping up.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
With the should-haves and the why'd you do that?
Exactly. It's about observing all those thoughts and feelings without getting pulled into the drama of it all.
So it's like we're shifting from being, like, actors in the play of our own minds
Ooh.
to becoming more like audience members.
Yeah.
Just observing the show with a bit of detachment.
Exactly. And that, my friend, is where things get really interesting.
Oh, tell me more.
Because the text says that when you can even just slightly detach from that constant thought whirlwind, even a little bit, a new kind of learning starts to happen.
A new kind of learning. Ooh, I like the sound of that.
Right. It's like you start noticing patterns in your thinking, those automatic, habitual ways you react to stuff.
Instead of just going through life on autopilot,
Mm-hmm.
we're starting to see the machinery behind it all.
Precisely. And that awareness, that ability to observe without judging, that's what the text says bridges us to the third stage of this whole practice.
Okay, and what's that?
That, my friend, is where the analogy of the stargazer comes in.
Okay, you've officially piqued my curiosity. Tell me everything. What's the stargazer analogy all about?
So it's not about like reaching this blissful state where suddenly our thoughts just disappear. No, not at all. It's more about, like you said, shifting how we relate to those thoughts, those feelings. Like instead of getting swept away by them, we're learning to create a little space, a little breathing room between ourselves and that constant chatter that's always going on in our minds.
And that's where the freedom comes in.
Exactly.
You keep mentioning a new kind of learning. And it feels important, this phrase, like it's clearly a big part of this whole approach. But honestly,
Yeah.
it's kind of mysterious. So what does that actually mean in the context of this whole attenta observation thing?
Well, that's a great question because it gets right to the heart of what makes this practice so powerful. So think about how we normally learn something new.
Right.
We read about it.
Mm-hmm.
We think it through, try to wrap our heads around it intellectually.
Maybe have a good, lively debate about it with someone who has a different view.
Exactly. And all that's good, valuable stuff. But this text, it's pointing to a whole other level of learning, one that happens not just up here, Tap's head,
Right.
but through actually doing this attenta observation. It's not just about cramming more facts into your brain. It's about embodying those facts, experiencing them directly through this process, this practice of really paying attention. Attentive observation.
So it's less about like adding more books to our mental library.
Yes.
And more about actually understanding the librarian.
Yes.
Ourselves, how our minds work.
You got it. And here's the thing. As we become more skilled at observing our thoughts and feelings, but doing it without that judgment, without getting all tangled up in them, the text says we unlock a different kind of wisdom, something that's more intuitive.
More connected to like actual lived experience.
Yes. Exactly. It's like we're tapping into this wellspring of knowledge that was always there inside us, but we couldn't access it before because we were so caught up in the noise on the surface of our minds.
So it's like we need to clear away the mental clutter first so we can finally hear that inner voice clearly.
Such a great way to put it. And as we do that, cultivate this ability to really see ourselves, but with more clarity and compassion. The text says it spills over into all these other areas of our lives, too.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, we become more present, more tuned in to the people around us, more capable of making choices from a place of grounded awareness instead of just, reacting out of habit on autopilot.
It's like I'm thinking about all those times I've totally said or done something in the heat of the moment and then instantly regretted it.
Oh, yeah.
Like if I've just taken a breath, paused for a second, really observed the situation instead of just reacting.
There you go. And that's what this attenta observation gives you, the potential at least, that pause, that tiny crucial space between something happening and you just automatically responding. So we can choose a better way to be. And listen, it's not about suppressing our emotions, becoming robots.
Right.
We're human, we're going to feel things. It's about understanding those emotions, seeing how they're driving our thoughts and actions. And in that understanding, we find a new kind of freedom.
You know what this reminds me of? That classic mindfulness exercise
Mm-hmm.
where you focus on the space between each inhale and each exhale.
Oh, I love that one.
It's like we're so used to focusing on the doing, the thinking, the reacting,
Mm-hmm.
that we miss this subtle space where, honestly, the magic happens.
Such a good point. And just like that mindfulness exercise, this attentive observation, it's a skill that unfolds over time. It's not a one and done kind of deal.
So true. Okay, before we go too far, I want to loop back to the stargazer thing for a second.
Okay, yeah.
Because it feels really connected to this idea of creating space, shifting our perspective. We talked about how the text asks us to imagine being both the observer and the observed. Like, we're down here on Earth, but we're also that distant star. How does that tie into this whole attenta observation thing and the benefits it's supposed to bring?
It's a really clever way to show how much this practice can actually expand our awareness. See, when we're stuck in our own limited perspective, here on Earth, we naturally think of ourselves as separate from everything else. It's me, and then there's everything and everyone else out there.
Our own little world with all its little dramas.
Exactly. And yeah, that sense of separateness, it's part of being human for sure, but the text is hinting that it's not the whole story. It's just one way of seeing things.
So by imagining we are that star, way out there, we're messing with that perception a little, that feeling of being totally separate.
Exactly. It's like we're cracking open the door to this possibility that we're actually part of something way bigger, way more interconnected than we tend to realize. And that shift in perspective, even if it's just a glimpse,
It can change things.
it can change everything about how we experience ourselves and the world around us.
Wow. So we're not just observing our thoughts and feelings anymore. We're tapping into this sense of, I don't know, like belonging to something much, much bigger.
Yes.
But okay, what does that actually look like in our everyday lives?
Yeah.
How do we live that?
Now that's the really interesting part. Because as we develop this broader sense of self, this more expansive way of seeing, it naturally starts to affect how we interact with the world around us. We become more compassionate, more understanding. We're less likely to get caught up in those little conflicts, those dramas that used to feel so important.
Because suddenly our own little problems seem a lot smaller when we remember that bigger picture.
Exactly. And it's not that our problems vanish, but we can approach them differently with a new sense of perspective, a sense of calmness, maybe. We start to see that just like we're connected to that star way out there, we're also connected to every other living being on this planet. And honestly, that realization, it can be incredibly humbling and incredibly empowering.
It's like shifting from me versus the world to
Yeah.
we're all in this together.
Yes. And that shift, it can have a ripple effect on everything: relationships, careers, our sense of purpose.
This is powerful stuff.
Yeah.
But I gotta be honest. That idea of observer and observed becoming one, which this text says is like the ultimate goal of this whole auto-observation thing, it still feels kind of abstract. Like, how do we actually get there? From practicing this attenta observation
Yeah.
to actually experiencing that oneness, that connection, it feels like a pretty big leap, to be honest. It
Yeah.
does feel like kind of a big jump. Yeah.
It's a huge idea for sure. And I'll be honest, the text, it gets a little vague on the specifics. Maybe because it's one of those things, you can't really put it into words.
Right.
But if we bring it back down to earth for a minute, I think we can see little glimpses of this oneness already happening in our own lives.
Okay, yeah. I'm all ears. Give me an example.
Okay, so think about a time when you were totally absorbed in something you love. Like maybe you're a musician and you're just lost in a piece of music.
Yes.
Or you're an athlete and you're totally in the zone during a game.
100%.
In those moments, that separation between you and the experience, between you doing it and the thing itself, it kind of melts away a little, doesn't it?
Oh, totally. It's like you become the activity.
Yeah.
Like time stops existing and there's just this flow, this feeling of being totally connected.
Yes, exactly. And those moments, as amazing as they are, they might be fleeting, but they give us a taste of what this auto-observation thing is pointing to, this way of being in the world where we're less stuck on that separate sense of self.
And more like plugged into the experience itself.
Yes. It's about cultivating that attenta observation, that attentive observation, not just as a mental exercise, but as like a way of life.
So it's not like we achieve it once
Yeah.
and that's it. It's something we're always working on, cultivating moment to moment.
Exactly. And the more we practice, the more natural it becomes to tap into that awareness, to observe our thoughts and feelings without getting like totally hijacked by them.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know what happens. We start to notice those whole patterns, those reactive patterns. We all have them. They start to loosen their grip on us a little.
There's more space between like something happening and us just reacting automatically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're less likely to get triggered by every little thing, and we're more able to respond to challenges from a place of, awareness, of compassion even, for ourselves and others.
Which, honestly, when you think about it, that's a pretty incredible skill to have. A superpower, almost.
It really is. And it's not about becoming, some kind of emotionless robot either.
Right.
We're human. We're meant to feel things, the full spectrum.
The good, the bad, all of it.
Exactly. But the more we practice, the better we get at navigating those emotions with more, skill, with wisdom.
It's like we become the observer and the director all at once of our own inner experience. We're not trying to shut the whole production down. We're just learning how to work with the material we've got in a more conscious way.
I love that. And just like a director, the more we practice, the better we get at recognizing, okay, this thought, this feeling, that's worth paying attention to. And this one, I can probably just let that one go.
We get more discerning about where we put our energy.
Yes. And honestly, I think that's way more effective in the long run than just trying to force ourselves to change.
So it's less about forcing, more about allowing.
Yeah.
Creating the conditions where those changes can just naturally emerge.
Beautifully put, because this whole practice, this attenta observation, it's not about reaching some finish line, It's not about becoming this perfect version of ourselves. It's about embracing the journey, with all its messiness and its beauty.
And who knows what we might discover along the way, right?
Exactly. That's what makes it so exciting. The possibilities are limitless. The more we cultivate that attentive observation, the more we open up to the unknown, to the potential that's always been there inside each of us, just waiting to be discovered. And on that note, I think we've done our deep dive for today.
This has been amazing. So much to think about. Honestly, I'm already catching myself approaching my own thoughts and feelings a bit differently. Like, with more curiosity, less judgment. It's like a whole new world is opening up.
That's what it's all about, taking these concepts and actually putting them into practice. And remember, even a few minutes a day, just a little bit of that dedicated, attenta observation.
It can make a difference.
To make all the difference. So, to everyone listening out there, keep exploring this, keep that inner observer engaged, and who knows what you'll find. See you next time, folks.
Until then.